others were totally denied the right to vote. That very courthouse that is antithesis in the movie Selma by Oprah Winfrey as she's standing there trying to come up with the names of all 67 counties in the state of Alabama. You remember that. My dad got up that morning extra early. And through the grace of God, we have wonderful home help. Mr. Gregg got there early that morning, 7 o'clock in fact. Dad wanted to wear his Sunday best suit when he went to take his photo ID. It took a little time for me and my mom and Mr. Gregg to get Dad dressed. And through the blessings of the Lord and 5 years of savings, we own one of those vans that kneels down and you can roll the wheelchair up and lock him in. So we own one of those. We rolled him in, locked him in, and off we go to the Dallas County Courthouse. We get to the courthouse, and I want you to know that the Dallas County Courthouse doesn't have a ramp. Why? Because it predates the American Disabilities Act. And so it didn't have to have a ramp. So all of a sudden, we're on the phone calling Mr. Gregg. Mr. Gregg, please, can you come and help us lift Daddy up into the courthouse? By this time, it is 9:45. We get Daddy up into the courthouse. We go up to the elevators. There are 2 elevators. In order to get this free photo ID, you have to go to the Board of Registrars, right? It's on the 2nd floor. And we get there, and there's a sign on both elevators. Out of order. Now, my dad was lucky. His daughter was a member of Congress who marched straight over to the probate office and told the judge it was unacceptable 5 days before the election, the primary election, to not have elevators that work. Unacceptable. So he picks up the phone and he calls a repair person, which took 2 hours to come, another hour to get it fixed. And by the time we got my father up to the 2nd floor, he was weary. But we looked on there and there was a big sign on the door that said, "What? Out to lunch." So there is no denying that certain vulnerable communities will have a hard time voting. And think about all the seniors that don't have folks to pick them up, that don't have a van that can kneel down. Just think about how hard it will be for the disabled and senior citizens to go and get this photo ID. For that reason alone, we should be fighting against these photo IDs. It's unacceptable. It's really unacceptable. And so I say to you, what are we going to do about it? We have to do something about it. You may be blessed to be able to go and get a photo ID, or you already have one. But there are lots and lots of our people that don't have them. And so these new renewed assaults on the right to vote really should give all of us pause. Just like the really scary church shooting in Charleston, South Carolina. Now, I don't know about you, but I was very reminiscent of the killing, the bombing of 4 little girls in Birmingham, Alabama in 1963. I, like Metropolitan, am a member of a historic church, Brown Chapel. And in the midst of our pain, in the midst of the sorrow, in the midst of grieving over the 9 lost lives, I couldn't help but have a conference call with my mom who sits on the board at the church. What are we going to do? That could be Brown Chapel. That could have been Metropolitan. What are we going to do? Well, what we can't do is be paralyzed by fear, because that's what they want. We have to do one thing to action. We should. I think it's so important to remember that we didn't get here by ourselves. And that's a lesson that you can learn to the millennials. You don't have to be born in Sewell, Alabama to get that lesson. I want you to know that I know I drink deep from wells that I did not dig, and I eat fruit plentiful from trees that I did not plant. Others sow the seeds so that you and I can have the freedom that we now enjoy. And guess what? We owe them a debt of gratitude that we can Barack Obama, when he received that Golden Globe and that Oscar he and John Legend for the soundtrack Glory, he said that Selma is now. And he was absolutely right. When little black boys and men of color are constantly in danger, Selma is now. When there is unequal funding in public education that destroys our children's ability to get a good education, Selma is now. When hate crimes are perpetrated against black churches and worshipers, Selma is now. We have lots of work to do. Lots of work to do. And Amelia Boynton couldn't have been more right. We need to do our own work. We need to get off the shoulders of our ancestors and walk boldly with faith, because that's what they did. They had faith. It was that faith that kept them motivated. Surely John Lewis and Amelia Boynton must have known that someday a Barack Obama would come. Surely they knew that someday, a Shirley Chisholm would lead to a Terry Sewell. Role of the church to teach us our Christian learning. It is from this pulpit so many espouse the virtues, the demands of equality. Frederick Douglass stood in this pulpit. It was Frederick Douglass who said, "Power concedes nothing without a struggle. Never has, never will." I am saying to all of you that if we are to change, make real, meaningful change, it will not happen in Congress. It must start with Metropolitan AME Church. It must start with us. And I know oftentimes I and others get weary. We will get weary in this journey. But I know that I can only make my journey because Ernest Green was bold enough, courageous enough to make his journey. And every time I walk through the halls of Congress and I'm in despair, and that is often, I'm frustrated with the dysfunction that is the federal government, that is Congress. It's dysfunctional and it should stop. You have to demand that it stop. We only react when you make it. Every time I'm in despair, which is often, I walk through that glorious portrait in the halls of the Capitol, the nation's capital. That portrait of Shirley Chisholm. Unboxed and unboxed. Her portrait is literally the only portrait of an African-American woman in our nation's capital. I look up at that glorious photo, and you know what? I get a pep in my step. I get a glide in my step. Why? Because I should be no ways tired. The fight. She fought the hardest fight. I can't imagine being the first African-American woman to walk the halls of Congress. Can you? No. So she fought that fight. And because she had the courage to fight the fight, I have to walk with my head held high and know that there will be miles to go before I can see. Right? Let us not be weary, grow weary. We cannot. Because there is so much more work to do. You know, in conclusion, the day that I brought Amelia Boynton to our nation's capital for the State of the Union, I mean, it was full of so many surprises, if you will. And it was Amelia who, when she finally got to see the president, she said something so profound.